right, so good morning, good afternoon, everybody. It's playing my song again. It's too excited. It keeps playing the song back to back. I don't know why it likes to do that. Something should go wrong in every video program, otherwise you're not having fun. My name is Jesse, everyone. Welcome to Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants. Some of you are joining again. We've had like 35 programs already this school year, which is insane. Some of you are joining us for the very first time. And so if you are new to us, we are all about bringing conservation, adventure, and science into classrooms around the world. Today really epitomizes what we do best. We've had the James Webb Space Telescope. We've got forest restoration after this. We've got dinosaurs in BC and the world's top cave diver. It's a crazy day, 5 insane programs. Everything we do goes live to our YouTube channel and stays there forever. So if you want to tune into this program in 3 weeks, 3 years down the road, you can absolutely do so. Lots of opportunity to get excited and keep the learning going. But I'm really particularly keen on this program in particular for a number of reasons. Number one, we have been partnering with the Schmidt Ocean Institute for years. We've done dozens of broadcasts with them. They're one of the best outreach organizations on planet Earth. Hannah, who you'll meet in a minute, was one of the very first people I reached out to in the summer because we just had to have them back on. They do such incredible work to bring the magic of the oceans into classrooms like yours, and I'm so excited that you all get to meet them, perhaps for the first time. Today, too, we are in a very special place. When I'm not being science communicator, man, my background is evolutionary biologist. So anything to do with the Galapagos is very, very exciting for me personally. My face hurts from smiling just thinking about it. So today, I'm going to turn you over to Hannah first to explain a little bit about what Schmidt Ocean is all about and the amazing work that they do. And then we are going to go live on a ship off the Galapagos Islands with a magic volcano that's shrouded in fog. It's very exciting to talk about the work that they're doing and the vertical reefs of the Galapagos. Without further ado, Hannah, welcome back to the broadcast and tell us all what you guys are up to there.
Hi, Jesse. Thank you for having us. Hi, everyone. As Jesse said, my name is Hannah Nolan, and I work for the Schmidt Ocean Institute. We're so excited to bring this broadcast to you today, live from RV Falkor 2. Schmidt Ocean Institute's mission is to boldly explore our unknown ocean. And the way we do this is with our research vessel, the Falkor 2. Which we offer to the scientific community free of cost. And in exchange, we ask that they make the data that they collect on board during an expedition freely available to the public. We also live stream all of our ROV dives on our YouTube channel at Schmidt Ocean. So after this is done, you can check out our YouTube channel and join in on an ROV dive and see the exploration happen in real time. Today, we are joined by Doctors Katleen Robert of Memorial University and James Kershaw from Bristol University, who are currently on an expedition, as Jesse said, off of the Galápagos Islands. And we're going to get to see an island in the background here really soon. They're exploring coral reefs that live on cliffs. So there's big underwater cliffs, and on these underwater cliffs are massive coral reefs. And we're going to learn all about them from Katleen and James. They're going to take us on a tour of the vessel, show us what they're doing, and at the end, we'll have plenty of time for questions. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Research Vessel Falkor 2 and to Katleen and James. Hi, guys.
Hi, thank you so much, Hannah, for the introduction. So as she mentioned, I'm Katleen Robert. I'm originally from Montreal, but I'm now a professor of ocean mapping at the Fisheries and Marine Institute of Memorial University in St. John's, Newfoundland.
And hi everyone, I'm James. I'm from the UK. I'm a PhD student at the University of Bristol, and yeah, I'm joining Katleen here on the Falkor.
So we're really lucky to be here in the Galapagos, so we can see a volcano. Unfortunately, it's a little bit cloudy today, but this is Fernandina, an active volcano out in the background here. And what's really special about the Galapagos, so we did mention the evolution part. So in the 1800s, Darwin actually stopped here while on board the Beagle, and it was a very important place for developing his theory of evolution. But what's also really interesting about the Galapagos is we are only about 3 nautical miles from shore, but we're actually working at 2,000 meters in depth. So it's just a sheer cliff, really steep slope, all the way down to 2,000 meters. And at these depths, what we're really interested in understanding are the cold water corals. So I'm sure you've probably all familiar with the shallow water corals, so those that we see in diving videos. And those use the sunlight. They have a small algae that lives in them. They're in symbiosis that uses the sunlight to give energy to the corals. But in the deep waters, past 200 meters, we don't really have sunlight. So the corals have developed a different adaptation. So here, they're just like tiny anemones, what we call polyps, and they have just like little hands, kind of. They're polyps, and they grab the food that comes down from the water column, and that's what they use to eat. And they're very colorful, and just like tropical shallow water corals, we see tons of life when we study them. We see crabs, we see fish, we see a whole range of different corals. And that's what we're studying here. And particularly, we're studying the ones that live on cliffs, in part because the currents are better, as well as they need rock to be able to anchor when they're little larvae and to grow. And that's what we have on these vertical cliffs. So to be able to go down there, we need robots, because that's way too deep for scuba diving. So maybe we can move forward to the ROV?
Yeah, absolutely. So what you're seeing now is the main deck of Falcon 2, our ship, and it stores, on here we store all of the equipment that we use. So we have all of these containers full of all of the science kit we use. We've got boats off the side. We have landers that we deploy onto the seafloor. And we'll show you some of the cooler kit in a second.
Sorry, it's just a bit noisy as we pass by. So obviously, if you work at deep depth, a lot of things need to be on wires. And so we actually have a CTD that's currently in the water. So we can see we have a big wire and a big winch to be able to bring that up and down all the way down to 2,000 meters. So I said CTD. So what is that? So CTD is an acronym for current, temperature, and depth. And that allows us to understand the water masses that we see. So as we go down, some of the water changes temperature or salinity, for example. And by measuring pressure, we can relate that to the depth at which the instrument is now. So at the moment, we do have a CTD that's going down. It's going to go down all the way to 2,000 meters. And one of the things that we're really interested in measuring is actually oxygen. So we have areas in our ocean that have less oxygen than others, and that has an influence on the animals that can thrive in these environments. Because if there's very low oxygen, it's not all species that are able to survive in these areas.
And something else we can do with the CTD that we're not doing right now, but it goes down with a load of Niskin bottles on it. So we have 24 bottles, and we open them at the surface. We send the CTD down to the bottom, and then on the way back up, we can stop and we can close those bottles and kind of take a sample of seawater at 2,000 or 1,000 or 1,500 meters depth. And that, by doing that, yeah, we're not doing it right now, but by doing that, we can get more of the chemistry of the water as well and really learn more about what's going on deeper down in the ocean than the surface. So I guess we can move to the ROV now.
Go ahead.
And this is, Schmidt Ocean Institute's ROV. It's called Sebastian. It's a remotely operated vehicle, an ROV, which means that we have pilots and engineers on board, and they basically operate it like a video game, right? We have a joystick, and they move it around. And this will go off the side of the ship when we deploy it. It's again attached to a wire, just like the CTD, and we'll lower it down to the seafloor. And at that point, the pilots will take control, and they can fly this around. So they can move sideways, they can go up and down. And what we're really looking to do is move along the seafloor and take samples. So Katleen, I don't know if you want to chat about samples and
are we able to go around? Let's see if we can go around, because this side. All right.
Guess we can go in.
Okay, that's great news. We get to bring you all the way around to Sebastian. So I hope you're seeing it now. So Sebastian, but what's really interesting about these large scientific work-class ROV is, one, they're really big. I hope you can see the scale next to me, but they have arms. So we can see two different types of manipulator arms here, and they have joints, just like elbows, wrist, shoulders, that allows them to really do delicate operations underwater. And everything that the pilots see is based on these cameras and with the lights, because obviously at 2,000 meters in depth, there are no lights. And it's really amazing what we can do underwater, even though we only see in 2 dimensions, just like in a video game where you don't have that 3rd dimension because you're using cameras. And we take these, the pilots, I wouldn't be able to do that. The pilots very delicately are able to take different samples. So for example, corals, we've sampled fossil corals that James will be able to talk more in the lab. We've sampled some of the animals that live on the corals, some of the brittle.
Oh, we lost your audio for a sec, guys. We've still got video playing, but we can try and get back and hopefully hear you guys again in a sec. This is the... There we go. We're good. We're back. I think we're almost back. We want to be back. Let's see. So we can see you guys again. Oh, but we can't hear you guys right now. Still.
Oh, okay. Are we back?
There we go. Yep, you're good.
We're back.
We're back.
All right, grand. It wouldn't be a virtual call if we didn't have some technical difficulties.
Right.
Sorry, and my excitement to show you the front of the vehicle with the arms and the sampling capacity, our audio disconnected. So I guess we'll talk from here, since I hope everyone got at least a little peek at the ROV. So underneath where the arms were, what we might not have seen quite as well is the porch. So there's a porch that comes out, and in there we have what we call bio boxes and rock boxes, which are really just scientific name for milk crates. But the bio boxes are actually sealed. They open, and we can put different animals in there, and we can close them back and bring them back to the surface. We also have smaller tubes that we call coral quivers, and that's where we put the small pieces of coral. And we put 1 species of coral, 1 sample in each of these tubes, because a lot of them will be doing genetic analysis. Because a lot of the species that we encounter might not have been described. So we might have collected a brand new species that we don't know yet about. So all of these samples will be sent to labs, and we're going to have taxonomic experts, so that's experts that look at the morphology, the shape of these organisms, as well as take little samples that are sent to the lab for genetic analysis. Yeah.
Yeah, not much more to add on the ROV. But when the ROV comes back up to the surface, we have all of these samples, and we have to deal with them in many different ways. So we have all the samples Kathleen's spoken about. We have genetic samples that have to be stored in ethanol or frozen. We have fossil corals that we need to clean and then dry out. We have rocks that we need to process and we need to cut up so we can see what they look like. So all of that requires a team of loads of scientists, and we have about 20 on board, right?
Yeah, we have 20 scientists, all from different backgrounds, different countries. We have a very international team at the moment. Yeah.
Yeah, so we all come out here and we get the samples off the ROV, and then we take them into the kind of main body of the Falcor ship and into the lab. So should we go that way? Cool.
We should always explore more of the ship. The more we explore, the happier everybody is, I think. This has been amazing.
Should we see if there's anyone in the cold room?
Let's start in the cold room.
So obviously the water at the bottom of the ocean is cold. We're in the Galapagos, so it is warm outside. So the water is not quite as cold as where I live in Newfoundland, for example, at the bottom. We're about 5 degrees. And so when the animals come back from the surface, we bring them in the cold room to keep them cold, similar to the condition that they experience at the bottom of the ocean. And then we sort the different animals into different petri dish and take some pictures of them. And then we preserve them using a range of preservation techniques, depending on what the analysis might be. So in some cases, it might be put in ethanol, so that we can do genetic analysis later. Some might be frozen, and some might be put in bigger jars to be able to be used for looking at the shape, so the morphology of the animal. All right, it's kind of cold in here.
Yeah. our biology team are very efficient, so they've already processed all of the samples that we picked up.
So we'll see in the wet lab if we can see a few animals. So on this expedition, we mentioned there is a range of scientists. So we do have some biologists, so the ones that work with the animals. We have geologists that works with rocks. We have people that work with the acoustic data that we collect that we'll see in a different lab. So here is our biology lab. So we can see all of the tubes that we need to collect some of the genetic analysis. We can see, so those are actually rhodolith. So those are actually an algae that we found at 125 meters in depth. So obviously sunlight reaches way further down in the Galapagos than it would in most regions of Canada, for example. And we can see here, for example, some animals having been preserved in ethanol from the previous expedition. All right.
Great.
Great.
All right.
What we can do.
So we're going to take you through now to where the ROV pilots, the ROV technicians, and also the scientists sit to control the ROV and also to choose which samples we want to pick up when the ROV is in the water. So we have this slightly dark room that's full of all of these computer screens, which at the moment are just showing our ship's position and some of the CTD data that's going down at the moment. But when the ROV is in the water, all of these screens that you can see are lit up with the cameras that we find on the ROV. So there's a science cam that we as scientists can control that allows us to look around and look at the things that we want to see, the video that we want to record, and the samples that we want to take. And the ROV pilots also have cameras that are just for them. So a situation cam, I think they call it, and also a camera that sees a bit further out into the ocean, right? And that helps them to drive the ROV, helps them to know what's coming up. They have sonar, they have all sorts of tools that can help them to drive the ROV as well.
And if we look right here, we can see sort of a replica of these arms that we saw on the ROV. This one says port, and I'm going to guess this one says starboard. And that's what they use to actually very delicately control these arms on the ROV. And as scientists, we sit back here and we politely ask them to collect different organisms or to zoom in, because a lot of what we do is actually based on video. So we take these video transect, looking at where the animals are on the seafloor, at what depth, what other animals are associated with them. And so we take very good videos. And yeah, I mean, if anyone is interested in life at sea, but is like, oh, maybe not science, ROV pilot would be a great potential job.
And we also stream all of the ROV dives when we're recording. They're on the SOI YouTube channel, right, Alex? Alex puts them up. So, yeah.
Fantastic, you guys. I brought up the stream link, by the way, on the screen, so any of our colleagues can absolutely check that out when they're done.
Computer lab?
Yeah, let's head to the computer lab.
So this is the computer lab. It's full of computers. This is where we control things like the CTD, which you can see Josh and Rob doing right now. So they're looking at the data as it comes in. It's also where we do a lot of the mapping, the multi-beam mapping that we do before we dive. Katleen is a mapping expert. I don't know if there's anything you want to say about multi-beam.
So I guess we'll bring you to the latest data that we collected. So that was just before the ship stopped to collect the CTD. So multi-beam, what is that? So actually, you might or may not know, but most of the ocean hasn't actually been mapped. So we don't necessarily know what the depth is. We have a rough idea, but we actually don't know. On land, you can just open Google Earth and actually see your house, but we can't do that in the ocean. And part of the reason is because light doesn't travel very well in underwater, it gets absorbed. So instead, we have to rely on sound. So just like a bat that echolocates, so it sends a sound that bounces off on an insect and comes back. And because they can estimate how far that is, we do the exact same thing. So under the ship, there is a sonar that sends a ping, and it bounces off the seabed, And because we know how fast sound can travel in water, we can estimate the depth. Now, at the beginning, let's say in the 1950s, we only had, or if you've ever been on a fishery, a fishing boat, you have a depth sounder. So that's what the depth sounder does. So that's one ping. But on these research vessels, we actually can have over 200 different pings in a swath across the path of the vessel. And that's what we're seeing right here. So this is our vessel, and this would be as it was traveling to our CTD location, we were able to map a big swath across the path of the vessel. And that allows us to get a lot higher definition of our seabed. But still, I mean, the maps that we've made out of this data today is still, we have one depth value for a grid of 50 meters by 50 meters. So anything small like cold water corals, we can't actually see on the map. So that's why we need the ROV. And on occasion, we actually put these acoustic sonars on the ROV as well. So we've done some mapping when we had the sonar on the top of the ROV, as well as the front of the ROV. And again, we use sound, but because we were closer, we could use higher frequencies, and that gave us some higher resolution where we're starting to be able to see the coral colony. To get even higher resolution, we actually used a laser scanner. So in that case, because we're really close to the seabed, only about 2 meters, we're actually able to use light, just like for a camera, for example. So we sent a scanner line across, and as the ROV moved, we scanned the corals, and then we were able to look at almost getting the polyps. We were able to see the squat lobsters and the crabs and the sponges that lived in the vicinity. So then we were getting down to millimeters, able to image this. All right, that sounds great.
Right. Sounds good. Yeah, if you guys have any questions,
Fantastic.
yeah, feel free. We're all ears.
Thank you so much for an amazing tour around the ship, you two. I want to confirm, can you guys hear me? I don't know if that changed with the audio.
Yes, we can.
Oh, perfect. Good. Well, we're going to head to our classes. YouTubers, if you guys want to chime in the chat, we'd love to hear from you there. We got a bunch of live classes with us. So what I'm going to do is start with Mr. Hancock's class. They're joining us in Georgetown, Ontario. You guys want to kick us off with a question while our crew gets in a cool position here? We'll take it away with you. Welcome.
Perfect.
Guys.
Yeah, great to see you, Jesse. We had a few students really curious at the beginning about the volcano. What's the status of the volcano? When's it going to explode or erupt? We're curious.
So the interesting thing is this volcano, I think, geologists in the background might be able to confirm, but it's overdue an eruption. And so obviously volcanic eruptions happen, yeah, on a certain time scale, the volcano is active.
But geological timescale are much slower than human timescale. So, and they're very hard to predict. So I don't think we'll see a volcanic eruption while we're here.
Sadly not. But in terms of the height of the volcano, I actually don't know that. Kilometer or two?
Dan, would you know the height of the volcano?
Okay.
So more information in case you haven't heard. So it last erupted 5 years ago, and it is about a mile in height. So
Cool.
That's about 1.5 kilometers for Canadians.
Thank you for that. I love that we started with volcano. My kind of kids, Mr. Hancock's class. That was amazing. Miss Swangshu's class, we're going to go to Jerusalem Elementary. One of our 2 classes there today. If you guys want to unmute your mic, you are good to go, and come on in for a question. Hey,
yes, here's. Do you catch fish?
Do you catch any fish while you're out on the ship?
So we're actually really lucky to be working in the Galapagos National Marine Park. So we do not fish in that area. There is fisheries, but those are for people that live on the Galapagos Islands. But we do not currently catch fish. We do see a lot of fish in our video. And what's neat about the video is we don't actually need to catch the animal to be able to try and identify it. So some people have been looking at our fish data, and we've seen some really cool sharks, apparently. So a rough shark, that was actually a very interesting find, apparently. But I don't know much about sharks, unfortunately.
Very cool. Thank you, guys. I will note we do a lot of programs featuring the Galapagos. It's a really special biological hotspot in the world. Some of the best diving on Earth is off the coast of the Galapagos. If you are keen on the fish there or anything else, I encourage you to get your dive license and go in the future. In fact, our grade 4 kids, you are at the age where you can start looking into scuba diving. By 8 and 10, you can start on the path to having that ability. So I can't encourage you enough. Miss Cullen's class, we're going to head to you guys, Jerusalem Elementary as well. Welcome in and take us away. Guys?
Hi. What kinds of animals live in the coral reef?
Ooh, what lives in the coral reef that you guys are checking out, you two? Perfect question.
That is an excellent question. So in the coral reefs, we've seen a lot of squat lobsters. So these kind of look in between a lobster and a crab. And they tend to hang out at the top of the coral and have their arms up like this. We're not 100% sure exactly why. It could be that it's hiding them from predation, or that it's allowing them to eat better. We also see a lot of brittle stars. So those are like starfish, but with really long arms, and they tend to wrap around the coral. We've seen a lot of shrimps, as well as a lot of urchins that we call pencil urchin, because they have really long spines that look like a pencil.
Cool. Can I just say that I've done probably a dozen broadcasts with the Falcor at this point, and every time we start answering a question, the fact that you guys can go to instant video like this and showcase what we're talking about is just as magical to me every time as it was the first time. It's incredible. What an amazing reef. So thank you so much for that question, Ms. Collins' class. We're going to head to our 6s at Viola. Desmond, if you have a question for us, unmute your mic, come on in and take us away, and then we'll do another round.
Hello.
Hi.
Hey, Miss.
Go ahead, Mish.
What is the machine charged by, and what happens if that energy finishes?
Ooh, great question.
And by the machine, are we talking about the ROV?
Yes.
I'm going to guess yes. Yeah, so that is what's interesting about an ROV. So ROV actually stands for remotely operated vehicle. I don't know if we mentioned it. But it actually has what we call a tether, or an umbilical cord, if you like. So the energy is actually passed down the umbilical cord, so it doesn't run out of batteries. And all the information, all the video, and sonar data that we might acquire actually comes back up through the fiber optic in the umbilical cord. So we can actually say, I think our longest dives have only been about a day, but technically the ROV could stay down for a week or even longer.
Cool. Thank you two so much. I'm going to follow up with something that was on film for a second. If we can bring that even back up. There's a bunch of crabs standing on a coral, and they got their arms straight up above them. And I'm wondering if we know why that is. If either of you can answer, if we have other biologist folks that can chime in, but it looks like they're trying to like harvest something, and I'm curious what that might be for our kids.
Yeah, we don't actually know exactly what they're doing. It could be that they're trying. So all the food that comes to the seafloor comes from the surface. So we have these phytoplankton bloom, for example, and then when it dies, all the food sinks down to the bottom. And then the organism eat that. Some organisms eat that, and then some other organisms eat the organisms that eat the food that fell down from the top. So it could be that that's what the squat lobsters are doing. There's also a chance, I know in some other crab species, they don't like the ROV. They're scared of him. He looks like something dangerous that could eat him. So they do try and attack the crab. Now that's something we see more in other species than the squat lobster, but yeah. James, do you have any thoughts?
No, those are the two that I had. It looks to me like they're trying to protect themselves or protect the coral that they live on. But yeah, we don't know.
Fantastic. Well,
and that's what's cool about doing deep sea science.
Yes.
There's a lot we don't know, so there's plenty of time.
It's my favorite answer for two reasons. One, anytime we can stump the scientists, it's like one of the glories of this broadcast. And two is that you mentioned that we have the influence on the animal's behavior. I think a lot of people see animals react. Maybe they go swimming, maybe they're walking around and something looks a little scared. And you've got to picture it from the animal's perspective. We are an ungodly large monster that's probably reaching at them from their perspective. So people are weird. We're a strange animal too, and a lot of things will respond to that. And certainly in the case of the ROV, it's a very huge thing that's coming towards them. So great answer, guys. Mr. Hancock is away from the desk, but if you come back, I'll come to you guys in a second. While you're waiting to do that, oh, he's back. There we go. I'll come to you first.
Yeah, perfect. We had a couple other students curious about Sebastian and the ROVs. What's the budget? How much do they cost to build and maintain?
Good question.
That is a good one. A lot is what I can say.
I have no idea.
And yeah.
Yeah.
And that's one of the wonderful thing about this experience at the moment is as scientists, this is provided without us having to pay for it by Schmidt Ocean Institute, because otherwise we would be talking about probably $1 million plus for an expedition like that.
So it's really funny because we used to only get money questions from like grade 10 and up, and now it's like every class, and I don't know what shifted. It was about 1.5 years ago that this happened. It makes me so happy every time. And it's a lot. Big expeditions, ocean, space, diving, whatever. They cost a lot of money. And I think a lot of kids are like, wow, like that seems like a lot. Science budgets in Canada and the US are like 1.5 to 2.5% of everything that's done. So all the knowledge that we gain from expeditions like this, from expeditions all over the world, from seeking to understand the world and universe around us, are such a small fraction of what we spend on. We spend way more on military things than we do on science and exploration. And so I always like to put that in context for kids who might hear many millions and go, oh, that seems like a lot. It's such a small piece of the pie in the scheme of things, and we get to have these incredible journeys to the seafloor in the Galapagos and places like it around the world. So I'm really glad we got that question. Thanks, guys. Miss Wangshu's class with like 27 kids that are at the camera, it looks like. Welcome back in. Hi.
Hi, go ahead.
What happens when the water touches the what happens when the lava touches the water? Does it touch the coral?
Ooh, so if lava comes down off the volcano and hits the water, what happens? I love this.
Was that the lava coming down off the volcano?
Yes.
Is that the question? Yeah. So when volcanoes erupt, obviously the lava is extremely hot, right? And when it hits water, it cools very rapidly. And so what you end up forming is these structures that are called pillow basalts. So they look like the pillow that's on your bed, right? Because the lava cools very...
Wouldn't want to sleep on that.
No. They're not actually very comfy, but they look quite comfy. The lava cools very quickly on the outside, it stays hot on the inside, and it kind of fills up like a balloon. And then we see those structures when we dive in the ROV. Something that we're looking at here is kind of how quickly a coral can kind of live on some of those structures. So when the lava forms, how long does it take for corals and reefs to start growing on those structures? Because they need a bit of time.
Amazing.
And we actually take samples of that lava and we can analyze it, and that can tell us more about what kind of composition that lava has, because not all lava is the same. I don't know much about lava. We have geologists, volcanologists that know a whole lot more about it, but there is faster flowing lava, slower flowing lavas, different viscosities.
Can I say 2 quick follow-ups? One is that we need to have a Newfoundlander and Brit combo more often on our broadcast because you two are delightful. And 2, if there are any kids that want to know more about volcanoes, actually a few weeks ago we did World's Weirdest Volcanoes with George Karuna. So that's on our YouTube channel. If our kids want to check that out and learn more, there's some really freaky things in that episode. So I highly encourage that as a follow-up if volcanoes are your favorite thing. Miss Cullen's class, I'm going to head back to you guys. If you have one for us, come on in. Hey, unmute.
Okay. How long do coral reefs live?
Great question. If you didn't catch that, how long do coral reefs live, you two?
That's for you, I think.
Yeah, so these coral reefs, the individual corals themselves can live for tens, hundreds, and in some cases we've found them that are thousands of years old. So they're really incredible creatures, and when we see really big fans, some of them, they can be almost a meter in size, right? A meter high. And they'll live for, hundreds or thousands of years. But the reefs themselves can live for much longer. So different generations of coral will grow and then die, and more coral will grow on those. And that's something that we're studying here, is those coral fossils and how long ago they lived and how long ago they survived. So we have a couple of pieces from the last dive here that you can see. Hopefully you can see that. So they're these pieces are quite small, but these will all add up to form the reefs that we're studying here in the Galapagos. And some of these pieces could be thousands of years old. And that's something that we're doing on this expedition, is to take the bits of reef that are underneath the live coral and to figure out how old they are, what were conditions like on the reef back in the past, maybe 10s or 20,000 years ago, to try and figure out how the ocean around the Galapagos has changed in that time.
Ooh, so cool. Little known fact about Charles Darwin too. We were talking about him in the context of natural selection, but he was one of the very first people to really study coral reefs and how they're formed and atolls and everything else back in his day in the mid 1800s. So I encourage you to check into that when you're a little bit older. And if you're really keen on coral, we do a lot of coral programs. Tim Lamont specifically did one of my favorite programs we've ever done in our history. So if kids are keen, I can always follow up and share that link as well for everyone. So great question, guys. Viola Desmond, I'm going to head to you guys, and then I'm going to take one from YouTube, and then time flies and you're having fun, so we'll have to make sure you guys have the resources to keep the learning going, but maybe a couple more questions before we wrap up today. Viola Desmond, come on back in, guys. Hey.
How far down can you go in the ocean?
Ooh, how far can the ROV go?
4.5 kilometers. We won't go that deep in this current expedition. Today, we're going to be doing our deepest dive so far, and that's only 1,600 meters. Yeah.
Wow.
But even when we're down that deep, the pressure that the corals and the organisms that live there experience is enormous. And if we couldn't go down there ourselves as humans, right? So yeah, it's even just 1,500 is still really deep. It's really dark. It's really cold. It's really high pressure. It's a really interesting and like alien environment to us on land.
Yeah, if we were to put a polystyrene cup on the ROV, it comes back tiny, just because of the level of pressure that's experienced down there.
A lot of our kids are familiar with blob fish. Whenever we do deep sea episodes, it inevitably comes up. And I really encourage our classes, look at a blob fish when it's actually on the seafloor, because it looks like a fish. It's just a normal thing. And then when we bring it up, that pressure difference is what causes it to look all funny. And it's because, as they were saying, it's such a radically different environment from what we have on the surface. A person could never dive down that far. We can only dive in very specialized vehicles, of which there's not very many on planet Earth. So I love this question. Thanks, guys. All right, Miss Mass Group wants to know, what's the craziest thing you've ever found with the ROV? No pressure. Craziest thing ever.
Well, a lot of things. So, I mean, a lot of things that are natural we expect to find. Unfortunately, even deep in the ocean, we do find man-made things. Trash, really. So once I was on the abyssal plain, so that was down 2,000 meters. We were with a different ROV, and we found a rice cooker with its lid on still. So we used the ROV and opened the lid of the rice cooker, and inside was a mama octopus holding the lid, covered in little eggs. So that's definitely the craziest thing I found in the ocean.
That's hard to
that
talk.
was offshore British Columbia.
That's a tough nut to crack. Do you have one that's your craziest thing? Because octopus in a rice cooker is like top tier level answer for this question.
Yeah, I don't have anything that cool. This is my first time on a ship with an ROV. But I have been on an expedition in a human operated vehicle, which is something slightly different. And we came across a headless chicken monster. So I encourage you all to look up what a headless chicken monster is. I think it's a sea cucumber. Is that right? And it looks like a chicken without a head, and it kind of floats around at the bottom of the sea. They're really strange looking things, but they're really cool as well.
I'm going to have to go with that one too, because I've never come across that.
Not every day. We should subtitle the broadcast that next time. Vertical Reefs of the Galapagos with Headless Chicken Monster. Surprise. This has been so much fun, you two. Honestly, we could go all day. I'm going to try and sneak in a few more questions if you have time for another 5 minutes or so, and then we'll wrap up from there. Are we good to go? Cool. Well,
we have time.
Yeah, sure.
In that case, Mr. Hancock, you shared it in the chat, but I'll come to you live for this one. Come on back. Go for it.
Yeah, talking about the pressure changes. So when you bring samples up, one of the students was wondering how much of the coral do you bring up? And I was wondering, do you have to recreate the atmosphere, the pressure, if you're going to study it up on the boat?
Yeah.
Sure. So when we sample corals, especially if we're sampling live corals, these, as we were saying before from the previous question, they've been alive, some of them for hundreds or thousands of years. So we try really hard not to take the whole coral. So we just try to take little branches of the coral, just as much as we need for our analysis, which for the genetics and for some of the stuff I do is really quite small amounts. And by doing that, by just taking a little branch of the coral, it stays on its rock that it's living on. The rest of the coral colony stays alive, and it will carry on growing. Maybe it will repair the bit of branch, or it'll just grow a new one somewhere else. So that allows us to kind of take small amounts and have as small an impact as we can. In terms of like bringing the samples back on deck, that was the second part of the question, right? I mean, it would be great if we could recreate the pressures that they're under and kind of see what some of the effects of that is. Unfortunately, it's not practical to do on a ship. One thing we do, we can't do it basically.
In this current
Sorry.
expedition, the samples that we take, unfortunately, get put in ethanol for genetic analysis. So
Here's our plug to all scientific research funding organizations out there. We need the money to be able to recreate these pressures and bring things up. Because it'd be some very cool science, and you make these two so happy. Miss Swangstu's class with the bazillion kids again. Come on back in.
All right, Aaron.
How many rooms and labs are there in the ship?
Ooh,
how long are you living in the ship?
Perfect. So how many rooms and labs and how long are you living on the ship?
how many rooms and labs? Ooh, that's a good question. I don't know how many rooms, but we are 20 scientists and way more personnel. So we have chefs, we have all the engineering team, we have the ROV pilot, we have marine technicians, we have the captain, the first mate, and all the other deck officers and deckhands. So I actually don't know exactly, but I'm going to go more like 60.
Yeah. Okay. And how long are you on the ship when you're there?
And we are on for this expedition for 4 weeks. But the vessel could probably stay a little longer at sea. This is a big research vessel.
Very, very cool. Thanks for that question, guys. And Hannah just chimed in the chat too. So it does exist. There's a mobile lab in a shipping container that can maintain pressures and bring things up that way. So to Mr. Hancock's question, we do have the technology to do that somewhere, which is very exciting. So thank you so much for that, Hannah. 2 more questions and then we're going to wrap up Miss Cullen's class. One final one. Come on back in. Hey, guys.
How does coral change colors?
Ooh. Does coral change colors? Given your faces too.
Was that does coral change color? Was that the question?
Well, so he asked, how does it change color? And so I'm following up with, does it? Like, for anyone who might not know, if it does or doesn't, can you tell us a little more about that?
Well, we definitely bring up corals that they have colors, right? Yeah. So we can't see them here at the moment, but we picked up this morning a pink coral, a purple coral, a red coral. A lot of those colors, the coral will use either for defense, and a lot of those colors will come from the organic molecules that the coral has kind of caught up in its skeleton or in its structure. Whether or not they change color, I don't know, because in the deep sea, it's pretty dark, right? So we don't have much light at the bottom of the ocean. So kind of color from a sight point of view, like it is on land and how you would see it. Yeah, obviously you can't see when it's dark. I don't know, Kathleen, do you know if corals change color?
I mean, I've seen organisms that are related to corals, what we call sea pens, and they can have a little flash of lights, but I'm not sure how they do it, the physiology to be able to do it. I must admit, I do not know.
Yeah.
And something just to add, some really cool deep sea creatures can bioluminesce, so they can basically make their own light and make their own color. And we've seen some of them in the lab, not on this expedition, but on other expeditions. When we turn the lights off, they'll glow different colors, so blues and greens and purples. So yeah, they definitely have they can make light, and they are colored. Yeah.
Cool. I would say there's nothing more magical in the natural world than bioluminescence. Actually, in Newfoundland, I discovered the bay that's right near where I live has some bioluminescence. You can run your hand through the water and it glows yellow. So if you ever are anywhere in the world where you have the opportunity to see it, there's nothing more splendid than that. One quick follow-up on this, just because I think this might be where our kid was approaching this question from. When coral get too hot, basically, they can exude the things that give them color. So you'll have coral bleaching events where you have a really colorful reef, and then the conditions won't be very good for it anymore. It'll get rid of its little buddies that give it color, and it'll end up very, very white. So you sort of have the coral skeleton left over. That's called bleaching. So that might be where the thought process is. Certainly there's been a lot of images in the news of coral losing their color, just as a quick addendum to that. Viola Desmond, we're going to go to you guys for one last question. Before I do, I just want to note, if anyone wants to check out more about the expedition, schmidtocean.org has all your amazing resources for that. You can check out more on the ship. And of course, as everyone's been mentioning, the streams, you can literally wait for them to be going live with an ROV, go on their YouTube channel and watch a live stream of them going down with a robot to explore a piece of ocean that no one's ever seen before. That is amazing. I would have given my left arm to do that as a boy, and you guys can do it anytime you want, which is very, very cool. Viola, Desmond, we're heading to you for one final question. Come on in and wrap us up. Hey, guys.
How big do coral reefs grow?
How big do coral reefs grow?
Another one for you, James.
Pretty big. So in the shallow waters, right, things like the Great Barrier Reef, they're enormous. They're thousands of kilometers wide and long. In the deep sea, sometimes when we're looking at the vertical walls, they might be limited to extent by how big the wall is, right? So we might have 50 or 100 meter high walls, and we'll find corals all the way over it. On this expedition, we've been finding big areas of the seafloor under the Galapagos, maybe hundreds of meters wide, that are just covered in coral reef. And something that we're trying to study is just how big those reefs are and what controls where they can grow. So yeah, they can be pretty big.
It's classically, you mentioned the Great Barrier Reef, like very easily visible from space. So big reefs are the largest living structures or agglomerations that we have on planet Earth. It's one of my very favorite questions. So thank you so much for that, Viola, Desmond. You two, the whole team at Falcor 2, Schmidt Ocean, this has been such an incredible journey. I'm so excited to welcome you guys back on in some future expeditions. And thank you two so much for taking time out of your busy day to share all this amazing info. Is there any final message you want to share with our kids before we bring them all back in to say a big thank you and farewell? Anything about your expedition we should leave them off with today?
Definitely consider science as you're thinking about your future career choice, and also know that there is a lot of different options within that range. So science communication is an awesome one, ROV pilots, the engineers that design all of this equipment. So there is a lot of different opportunities out there to study our natural world.
Amazing. Thank you two so much. I'm going to bring in Ms. Swangshu's class, Ms. Cullen's class, Viola, Desmond, Mr. Hancock's class. You want to unmute your microphones and join me in saying a big thank you and farewell. You are all in the broadcast. Have a wonderful day. We'll see you all soon. Thank you so much. And have a wonderful time. Bye for now, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.